Welcome back to another episode of the Apocalypse Podcast. I'm one co-host, Kyle, and with me, my brother. Say hi.
Hi, it's Taylor. That's me.
Okay, yep. And today, we're talking about the television show Severance.
I believe it's pronounced Severance. I don't know where people are
yes.
getting Severance.
It does have the word severe right in the
I
front of
haven't
it.
watched the show, so I don't know how they pronounce it.
Yeah, well, this is going to be a weird podcast. Yeah, Severance was a pretty hit show. It came out really with a pretty big splash back in 2022, I think season 1 was, and then took them 92 years approximately to release season 2, which kind of just wrapped up. So we're going to talk about it today. Might be a little disjointed because I haven't seen season 1 basically since it came out in 2022. But, you know, you watch season 2 and you know everything you need to know about season 1, I guess.
Yeah, so how do you well, first let me hear if you had to give just season 2 a review and then like
7 out of
Severance
10.
as a Okay. What would you give season 1 if you had to do a
9 out of 10.
knee-jerk? Now going into season 3, how are you feeling about the show's like setup moment? Like
Wow, so we're gonna jump right to the end of season 2, huh? Okay.
well, no. I mean, just like,
Spoilers.
are you more excited for season 2, or were you more excited now for season 3? Like, which of the season endings?
I was way more excited for season 2. Now I am less excited for season 3.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Well,
You know, because the season 2 setup was typical, like, absolutely fucking enormous cliffhanger, and you're really invested in the show, and they give you this line at the end of season 1, and you're like, oh my fucking god, yeah, everything comes to a head, and then I gotta wait 3 years to figure out what happens next, like, ugh. But, no, this one, I not really, that's extreme. I disliked the ending of this season, and maybe we'll get to that.
Really disliked as a knee-jerk reaction does seem a little extreme.
Well, whatever. We'll get to it a bit later.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about this podcast, this show too, for 2 hours or something. But
so I would give season 1 a similar 9. You could if it was rounding about, it might roll up to a 10.
Yeah,
because
it was.
You watch 10 episodes straight without blinking, and it is paced and shot and all that stuff. Season 2, I wouldn't drop it much more than that. This is my problem on a story-driven space, is like, as shows grow in scope, sometimes the shows that grow in scope grow too quickly, too fast, that it becomes, eventually there's a giant laser beam and you have to shut it down to save the world. And that's when the stakes get so big that I lose what made the stakes of this type of show good. And I could see it going that way. It might escalate, but like, as of right now, I give like season 2 like probably an 8 or even a 9 if I'm depending, but probably like an 8.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I was talking to Lauren about this last night. That was one of the things I really appreciated about this season, was that the scope did not increase too much. It still felt like Lumen are the evil masterminds controlling the lives of the people involved, but it didn't feel like some overarching worldwide super secret government thing or anything like that. You know, it was very contained and grounded still, and I liked that a lot. I really appreciated it because, yeah, like you said, that's something that happens so often with these shows where they have a good idea. For a good idea for a season, it's an unexpected hit. They have to make season 2 and they don't quite know what to do, so they're like, well, just increase the stakes. And that means instead of making it a company, make it a whole corporation. And then instead of a corporation, make it an international corporation. And like, you know what I mean? And they just expand and go bigger, like you said. And eventually it started like, I was an office worker and now I'm having to save the planet from an asteroid. Like, it's this show, to clarify, did not do that at all. It felt very, very contained. It was just, yeah, I really appreciated that about it. It still felt small. You could feel, like you said, you could feel the stakes increasing. You could feel how maybe, because they do mention like this the events are going to change the world, and they mention stuff like that, the implications that larger things could happen from this, but for the most part, it stayed very contained.
So I was thinking about how we could even talk about this show, and I was thinking about like when we reviewed Dexter, right? We talked kind of like the first 4 seasons and stuff, but what's nice about Severance here is like I think this show's almost as much about the characters that it is the actual plot. So I thought we talk about kind of like the main cast individually, their innies and outies, and just kind of the story threads that they might be involved in as a way to, because like I don't know how we were going to structure this,
I just
rather than
wanted
just be
to
like,
freeform talk about it because
okay,
I think
well, I
we'll
want
have
to
plenty to
ask you
say.
about what the fuck is up with Mark Scout's haircut. That is one of the worst haircuts I've ever seen in my
Oh
life.
yeah, the kind of like big helmet thing.
Yeah,
It's not
I'm
like horrible,
dumbfounded.
but it looks like a good haircut that's grown out way too long, and now it looks
Though
goofy.
now I think about that, I'm stupid for even saying that. That is 100% a depressed guy. The functional haircut of like, it's still like I
Yeah,
don't want to go out
and
and get it
actually,
taken care of.
yeah, the
I'm done.
flashback scenes of him, you know, eh, while Gemma was still quote unquote alive, which as we know from season 1, she's alive. So yeah, it literally looks like his really like done up, good looking, stylish haircut from season 1 just grown out for a long time because he doesn't give a shit, which is
I
exactly what it
also
is.
I loved the complexity they added in this season 2 between Gemma and Mark. In terms of like, it wasn't the relationship wasn't nearly as long as I assumed. They were not married nearly as long as I
It was
thought
only
they
a few
were.
years, yeah.
Though it would explain why the one also that their relationship was way more troubled than I assumed it was. It was very sad too. Um and like it almost makes sense now why Mark reacted so intensely, because towards the end you can kind of tell that he was alienating and pushing her away anyway. So like there's almost this sense of, so I just thought that was a really good touch. I don't normally care that much when they kind of introduce characters you've known, but in maybe like get some more detail and like you get to know how they first met and whatever. And sometimes it's cute or whatever, but not that interesting. But I found what they did with Gemma, I was really surprised at how interesting her character ended up being, other than just a plot device. Um, there's this one, since this is just gonna be freeform. This is the piece that I still don't think the show is acknowledged that I'm struggling with. Why Mark Scout and why his wife?
Yeah. Yeah, Lauren and I got to that discussion last night too, where I felt maybe dumb for not understanding or not. The show kind of makes me feel dumb sometimes, and thinking back on it, I have a question of like, I just don't get why they're doing any of this. I don't quite understand all the rooms in season 2 that are revealed that Gemma has to go into. Are they parts
So
of her subconscious? But
this
that's
is what I
before we go there.
okay.
Yeah, we'll touch back on that. I don't know either why Mark and why Gemma. Maybe it was specifically because of their fertility issues. That's something I wanted to say too, was I didn't necessarily peg their relationship as falling apart or anything. I think they were just trying to portray realistic relationships, because a lot of times in movies where a husband and wife are kind of fighting for each other like this, all the flashback scenes, they have this unbelievably perfect marriage and they love each other so much, and so it's bait to make you really feel for the characters and understand their motivation and root for them. This show, because it's more well written than the average show, I think they were showing like, yes, they love each other, this is how they fell in love, but they're having fertility issues, which usually can like, it can really strain a marriage, and they're having problems getting pregnant, and they're starting to get annoyed with each other about random things. And like you said, he's kind of alienating her a little bit sometimes, but then he'll say a little comment that kind of pulls it back, and you can see they still love each other and care about each other. I just saw it as them portraying a more realistic relationship with their ups and downs.
I guess when I say falling apart, it was because of how horribly Gemma was feeling and how, like, it's not that their marriage was falling apart, but them as individuals are not happy in the moments like, towards the end when this, like, he thinks Gemma dies, like, they were not in a happy place. Like, they were, like, okay with each other, but, like, Gemma was clearly very messed up about not being able to have a kid, and then the miscarriage, and then, there's just, like, tension there. It isn't, and like, kind of what you were saying, it's just not portrayed as this Hollywood love story. It was a realistic couple going through a hard time together, trying to figure out how to, like, make it all work.
The last scene was
It's not
still
like they were
was still sweet between Gemma and him. She's
it was actually the sweetest in a while.
Yeah, she was
going. What I think it is.
She was going out to eat or going out with some friends, and she was like, "Are you sure you don't want to come?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got to finish up this thing. It's due today." And he, because he's a professor or something, and he's working late trying to finish something up. And she's like, "All right, I'll just go by myself, I guess. I'll see you later." And he goes, "All right, see ya." And she goes, "All right, I love you, Mark." And he just kind of starts really focusing on his work and doesn't really hear her. And she's like, "Mark, I said I love you." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, hon. I love you too. See you later." And then she leaves. So they still...
Oh, you thought that was Oh, interesting. We interpret these scenes just so much differently, because, like, that to me is a sign of just, like, he's so locked in that, like, she's such an afterthought that it's just, like, it doesn't matter. And, like, it's obvious how much she wants him to go, and he just won't. And, like, I don't know. I don't find that scene good at all. I was thinking about her in the shower after a miscarriage and how he's treating her and talking her through it. Like, that was a really dark scene that, like, shows that they have this really strong bond, or, like, that he wants to help. But that scene to me emphasizes how disconnected they are and how, like, just not...
I see it as I totally disagree.
Okay.
I mean, I don't
know what part of the conversation can I follow up with the other you saying, "No, you're wrong. You're right."
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I disagree. I just didn't feel that much intensity or energy between them in that scene. It seemed to me she literally was like, "Are you sure you don't want to go?" And he's like, "Yeah, I really got to finish this up." And they both have jobs that are similar from what I understand, where they really got to hunker down, put their heads down and finish work, and he was just trying to get his shit done that night. I didn't see her as, like, desperately pleading for him to come. I didn't.
Well, let's frame what I am saying in a more, I think, normal way, so that you can see where I'm coming from. Of, like, what you're describing is not a relationship people want to have, of being really into their work. And I think it's an example of a moment where they could be together and bonded, and it's clear that Gemma wants him to come with, and he's so bogged down by work. It's not about a choice Mark is making intentionally to upset her, but so much as their lives are prioritized differently now than it was before, and how that can tear down the spirit a little bit over time of a person. As a divorced person, maybe that's why I have a different perspective of seeing a relationship slowly fall apart without any outward clear moments of stating, like, "This is frustrating, why won't you do this with me?" Is like, he just won't. Like, it's obvious, like, to me, this doesn't feel like the first time trying to get him to go do. He does not seem like someone goes out and does stuff with her. And, like, so to me, it's kind of showing a pattern of this. They aren't doing stuff together anymore, or when they do stuff, they bicker and they're picking at each other a lot. Almost in all the flashbacks, he's making some snide comment. She's making some snide comment that, like, starts a little bit of a fight that he can't resolve. And this is just another moment in which she can't even get him to acknowledge her until she leaves the room. Can't close the laptop for 30 seconds. Those types of little moments add up to me to show this bigger picture of their marriage isn't as like, there is some problems there, and that's why it's sad. But I could see a normal person who, like, can just say, like, in this individual moment, that moment standing alone, I agree with you, but I don't think that moment is an isolated, standalone moment. It is one of pretends that we see in which they do not,
So
aren't on the same
it's
page.
interesting because, as somebody who is not divorced, I would say, yeah, I would say a lot of what you're saying is projection. I do understand where you could think that that's what's happening. I don't know. I would argue that that's maybe and maybe the creators are like, no, Taylor's spot on. So obviously, I'm willing to concede that I could be completely wrong. Obviously, we won't know, but um, I just feel like that's almost an over analyzation of that little sequence, especially because it's interesting. I'll give some context. You are you understand things emotionally differently than I do, and you analyze that kind of stuff a lot more intensely than me. I, on the other hand, because I love acting, I'm kind of an actor. I pay attention a lot to acting, a ton to people's acting while watching literally anything, because you can learn something from everyone as an actor watching them act. I pay attention to a lot of the nuance of that stuff, and to me, that scene it just didn't read the way that you're saying it did. I think you're analyzing more like the words and the like the action of the scene, and I was analyzing really heavily their facial expressions, how they were saying things to each other. I was really looking at their eyes. I think we just analyzed that scene from two different ways. And to me, I think certainly somebody really invested in their work and having a hard time getting pulled away from it. When your wife is saying I love you and you don't even hear it, it's like, yes, that could be a sign of trouble. But the fact that it was almost in jest, where she looked at him with these like caring, loving eyes and a little smile, and she was like, hey, I said I love you. And he looks up immediately with the same kind of look back at her. He cares about her. He's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, hon, I love you too. So to me, it didn't strike me as some writing on the wall. It was just it. I guess I just think like you're like, we're probably both right.
I think what I'm pointing to is that this scene is another in a moment which they are not clicking, and the show is showing constantly different scenes in which they are not on the same page. Because like, I agree that it's not a very intense negative moment, but it's just another moment in which they're highlighting their disconnect. So that's more what I am saying about that scene, more than like the scene itself. Because I agree that it's not a very like high intensity thing, but it is as
okay. So let me ask you this then. After you saying all that, what does that mean for you? Why are we talking about this?
Because this shows the slow decline of their very positive relationship, and then at the time she dies, they were still sort of sliding down, and that's why it's so devastating to him, because he can't like show her and like he didn't realize what he was losing, and now she's gone, and that's why in particular it was so devastating, besides the obvious like, I lost my wife. Lots of people react to different things. I think it is trying to really emphasize the emotional like ripping that he doesn't get to. That's what I think it's supposed to do, is really highlight this why her death in particular hit so hard that he's now a drunk who doesn't engage with a human being at all. Is that like he really fucked this whole thing up, and it tore him up about the things he had said, and like they never had that conversation to like hash that stuff out, or this stuff with the baby was going on and they didn't seem to really have like a good conversation about it. There was a lot of fighting about it, but not like a, hey, we're on the same team. And that's what I saw in almost all of those scenes with them, is like in the very beginning when they first meet, they're like eye to eye, but in a lot of these scenes they're just like not quite on the same page. There's just a little bit of that's what I think it's not the scene in isolation. And like you said, in isolation, I agree with what you're saying. But when you take it as that's the nicest like engagement they show, it's like that's not that heartwarming.
Oh, that's not
That's
the
just
nicest engagement they show.
I said one of the nicest, and it's shown towards the end of the like in the middle of their kind of
You
stuff.
know, it's interesting. I almost see that scene as not a further downslide. I see that as like an uptick.
Wow. Okay. I
Because
have a hard time imagining that reaction from my partner and being like, okay, cool. Like I
but I
don't.
mean
It's
that's
just like
you. That's what I'm saying. That's you.
sure, but Kyle, you're asking what like my take is. Yes, I am projecting, but so are you. You're projecting your feelings on how you're interpreting the scene. That's how everybody handles like how do you interpret anything from anyone as you take your own thoughts and feelings and experiences and try to understand it through them. So like I understand that as I'm those are my feelings on it. Uh and why our interpretations are different. It's not because you have information I don't. I have experiences you don't. And you have experiences I don't, and that's why we read these completely differently. I totally see where you're coming from, and I do think that you can interpret it, and that's what makes it good. Is like both of our interpretations aren't wrong. It makes me feel more invested in Mark trying, and why the ending of the season worked better for me is because I feel like Mark and Mark S are two separate characters who have two different like goals, but they're at the same end. It's he just wants to be loved and to love someone. That is all this that is the shared connective thing, is like that relationship's super important to him. So to see it be so compared to the beginning of how absolutely engaged and locked in, and how now she's the second tier, that has to mean something. It has to wear on somebody at some point. And if it doesn't, what does that scene show? And what you see is like, oh, they still love each other. But what I see is the opposite. Not the opposite, but a furthering of this, like, we get along, but there's something else. It's just, we're not quite on the same page. And how long not being on the same page can be very exhausting. And it makes it so that every interaction you interpret them in the worst way possible because you're irritated, because you're not on the same page. And I think that's all, to me, it paints a much more interesting and connective tissue between all of the scenes instead of them being random moments that are supposed to just show like, see, they love each other. Well, you told me nothing. I would know they love each other. You're showing me that they are struggling. So what does the struggle say other than this? And I find it hard to wrap my head around what the upshot is, because I know Mark loves her. That's why he's doing all this. They're showing it so desperately how much he wants to save her. So, like, I don't know that scene says anything that we haven't already heard them say.
Well, that brings up something. We're talking about his, relationship, or her dying makes him become an alcoholic, and that's how he loses his job and whatever. I don't know. I almost feel like Adam Scott in real life might be a drunk. Obviously, I don't know, but he constantly has like slightly trembly hands. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Oh, I don't know that I picked it up, but I bet you I would have remembered if
I noticed that
I don't know.
I even noticed that back in Parks and Rec, which maybe it's like some kind of neurological problem and I'm pegging him as an alcoholic, and it's like totally out of left field, but it just, I don't know, stuff like that. I think about stuff like that, especially recently, like we watched Buffy, right? And Xander in real life, the actor whose name I can't remember, but he has had substance abuse problems like since he started doing Buffy. Basically, he's one of those people that just did not handle fame well at all, and he needed to escape. And now he's a huge substance abuse. He has substance abuse issues. He's had multiple DUIs. He's gone to rehab multiple times. He is still to this day an alcoholic. He has not broken any, the
Jesus,
addiction.
That's really sad. I had no idea it was still bad.
Yeah, it's sad. But he is one of those actors where you can see over the evolution of the show, like you can just kind of tell he's an alcoholic. He goes from like later in the show, he has the same kind of slightly trembly hands. They don't actually show a lot of scenes with him like holding things or pointing at things because his hands are always shaking. He's gotten kind of like more swollen and bigger, not in just a like, oh, I gained weight way, but it's like that alcoholic kind of puffiness that people get, which granted, Adam Scott does not have it all in this show. He's kind of gaunt almost, so maybe I'm just...
I think you're speculating a little bit. I think it might be an intentional thing, and like maybe just like I don't know. I did not pick up on any of that stuff. At least I didn't notice it enough to think it was anything beyond it's the character, because I definitely don't remember him like being a little shaky in Parks and Rec either. So
yeah,
I don't know.
It's just a slight tremble. So I'm sorry, Adam Scott, if I'm besmirching your character, but I don't know. It was just like it was a thought I had while watching Severance. It's like, oh, I wonder, because obviously, you know, he brings up that he became an alcoholic after Gemma died. I wonder if that's something.
I mean, I do like what I imagine is that he is probably drunk in a lot of scenes, and he does do the like what I call a realistic drunk of the someone trying to hold a normal conversation, but it's just a little mumbly or a little like tougher for them to clear words out. I think sometimes it comes off that way. I will say there's only one character I actively don't understand, and not just in the like, what is your goal? But like, I don't understand what you're doing achieves any goal, and that is Miss Cobell, his neighbor. I loathe what they've done with her. I don't understand. I don't understand her speaking thing. It doesn't. I find that she has this bravado that doesn't make any sense. I just, this season, I loved her as a villain in season 1. I thought she was a good like antagonistic force for them to play off of.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I really, really didn't like her. I will use really, really this time. I really didn't like Miss Cobell at all. I agree with everything you're saying. The way she talked, she's just constantly talking like this, where it's slow and you have to understand. It's like, why the fuck is she talking in slow motion?
You are saying words much louder and clearer than she does. She also doesn't open her fucking mouth, and it's just mumbly nonsense.
That's a good point.
I watch episodes with her with subtitles on, not by choice. I cannot understand, but everything she says is so fucking important that you have to hear every word. And it's just like, she acts like she's the character in control, and she isn't. I don't get it.
Yeah, so her arc is really frustrating, because she was a great villain in season 1. I loved that she was, you know, she lived next to Mark in real life, but then she was her severed boss that, you know, obviously the Amy didn't know. Cool. It was really cool. You were wondering, oh my God, what the hell is she doing? Then she gets caught and fired and just like runs away. And they try to still keep her pulled in. The big reveal, I'll just spoil it, so those who don't want spoilers don't listen.
This has been... Look, the fact that Gemma's alive and we're talking about her this long
at the end of season
much
1.
Bigger of a spoiler.
That's at the end of season 1.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
So, the reveal for Ms. Cobell is that she digs through her old house and finds a notebook that apparently proves that she actually thought of the idea and invented the whole severance procedure, and that Keir, the mastermind behind it all, stole it from her. And they like threatened her with lawsuits and shit, or just blackmail. I don't know exactly what. They're not super clear, but she was like, I was scared of not being a team player if I didn't give him this idea.
It's a cult thing. Yeah, I think they were going to exclude her from this group if she didn't go along. Right. That Keir deserves all blessings.
So that's the big twist, is that she's actually the creator of the Severance program. But I don't know. It's like, I don't care. I don't like that. I thought her episode, I liked the setting of her episode. She ended up somewhere, probably in Alaska, maybe. Do they ever say?
They don't say. That's what it's something that is really cool about the set design and stuff. I don't know what year it is. I don't know where anywhere is. It all feels like winter in Washington. But like, that could have been Canada. I don't know.
So but it's like a really, really derelict town. there's abandoned. They make a point to show abandoned cars every couple streets that are all just rusted out and destroyed, and
abandoned buildings.
Yeah, the abandoned buildings. The homes are completely disheveled. People are addicted to drugs. Like one of the characters that Miss Cobell goes to see, he runs a bar or a little diner, and he's literally selling drugs from the diner. It's an inhalant. It's this little glass vial, and people inhale it and get high. And
oh yeah, dude, that drug was so weird.
yeah. So he's selling that to people from his diner that he runs, and Miss Cobell shows up. It's funny too. This is a little thing. The writers, for some reason, have a habit of writing for Miss Cobell. They make her take an action that is 100% completely pointless. And what I mean by that is, she goes into the diner to meet this guy that she's trying to reconnect with or use him for something because she needs something. And she sits down at this table to like get his attention, and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" And he's like, "This is for paying customers only." And she's like, "Well, then I'll have a coffee." And he like, I'm kind of butchering the setup, but basically she sits down and is like, "You need to go get me a coffee." And then he's like, "Why are you here?" And immediately she just like stands up and leaves. And she's like, "I need to talk to you outside." It's like, why the fuck did you come in and sit down and pretend to order coffee just to cause this little 5-second strife? And she does that multiple times.
She's the main character, is the energy I give out. I was like, everyone needs to stop what they're doing and do exactly as I say, as long as I'm in the scene. I'm the main character of this story, is the energy she gives off, and it drives me nuts because everything is esoteric and she never says anything clearly.
Yes, okay.
When she's about to answer, she screams and runs away with a car. Multiple characters, she's just in the middle of a conversation in which they have her dead to rights to be like, "What the fuck are you doing? What is your goal?"
Run away!
Drives off to another state. It's like, fuck off, dude. Like, that's not even satisfying. And like, am I supposed to want her to lose? Because the story is framing her like a hero.
Yeah.
Like everything that, like, I'm angry that the show is validating that she's correct. I don't know what am I supposed to, is she, it's not mysterious in an interesting way. It's mysterious in a frustrating way.
Yes.
Because Milchek to me is a way more interesting.
God, he's so
like,
good.
Honestly, the best character is the most interesting character to watch because he is doing the acting thing where I pick up so much from his subtle, like, breathing and eye movements and word choices, is just like very subtle things that I can express more of what, because he will never share what is on his mind because he's a company man, right?
Yeah.
And so he will always do what is supposed to be done, but like you can tell how he feels about those things all the time. I can usually tell when he is enjoying being a shithead, or he doesn't want to do it, or he's annoyed, or he's pissed off at one particular person. But for Cobell, it is a one note, everyone's a fucking moron, everyone's stupider than me, I'm in control, you think you're in control? Well, you're wrong, I'm manipulating you. And she has
a secret agenda that she won't reveal to anyone. Yeah.
Including the audience, or herself.
Yeah, she's a really, really frustrating character, and I especially hate that they turned her into sort of this protagonist because they had one. The lady that was helping Mark initially with the brain, the reintegration thing, and they just, like, she was cool and it was still grounded. You know, they were like in his basement trying to figure this out, just like in season 1 when that other guy was helping him with the plans and PD. Yes, sorry, PD. Yeah, you know, that was so great. And then Mark's sister comes in, doesn't know what to do, so she's like, "I'm gonna call Ms. Cobell," and the other lady is like, "Okay, if you do that, I'm out of here. I can't help you anymore." And she's like, "I'm gonna call her anyway." So, and you know just what? Within a scene, they just supplanted one kind of, you know, kind of under the radar, mysterious hero character with another one, but Miss Cobell is just worse in every way and more obnoxious and very unbelievable.
So what I loved about also the mysterious, I feel bad I don't remember her name either, is like in some ways you don't know for sure if she's sharing everything. Like there might be something else, or we don't know exactly why, like what her end game is, but you can at least know that she does want to do this unsevering thing, but you don't know, like, probably know it's a corrupt organization too or whatever, but that to me is a more compelling thing. Is like, oh, this character's a little bit enigmatic. I don't know what their end game is here. I see what their short term goal is, but once you have Mark on your team, what are you doing? Like, and like I could see them setting up this thing to take down Lumen or whatever. So like, but with Cobell, it's like and they just replace her. You're right, and like in this way of like, and with Devin, his sister, she's usually very annoying, but I understand why she loves her brother so much and she doesn't want him to die. I think that makes sense. Even if it goes against the plot like direction, like she's there as kind of like a roadblock. That's okay because like the story's written in a way that like that character, it makes sense that what she's doing. I don't know what Cobell's end goals are, so I never know how any scene is afflicting her. She's has one emotion, so I can't read anything from her performance.
True. Yeah, well, her end
have
goal
any
obviously...
friends.
No, she doesn't have any friends. Her end goal obviously is to take down Lumen at this point. She was trying to get her job back and then got kind of wigged out because she started to get the vibe that they were probably just going to try to kill her or make her disappear. So she ends up kind of running away and switches to plan B, which is like, all right, fuck you then. I'm going to take over the company or bring you guys down. She doesn't explicitly say this, but the fact that she's motivated to stop Lumen... it seems like her getting fired and let go of the company has sort of broken the brainwashing that they had done on her potentially. I mean, I'm speaking figuratively. There's no literal brainwashing, but like you can tell with Milchick too. Anyone who's involved with Lumen just has this cult mentality.
I actually want to circle back to that because that's something I think the show does very well is that exact statement you're saying.
Yeah. So yeah, Harmony Cobell, her end goal now is clear. It's like, well, you fired me. You might have even been trying to kill me. I'm going to try to take you down instead. So she's going, I'm the one, the trump card they're trying to give her, the ace up her sleeve is that, oh, the whole thing was magically her idea. I guess she's a super genius we didn't know about that invented the Severance thing. But that's her goal now. So she switched sides. I'm a good guy now because I want to take them down too.
And it's like, I have seen villains helping heroes all the time, but she is behaving the exact same way, which makes her end goal harder to obtain. So that's my biggest problem with this at the end of the day, is that like, she's smart enough to know that this behavior is not helping her achieve her goal. She doesn't have to trust anybody to do this stuff that she's doing, but she can be, let's say, 1,000,000,000,000% more helpful and less antagonistic and still be roughly in the same position, but then people would be willing to have a conversation with her. Because I think a really good moment was when Mark, like, it was like either the last episode or right before the last episode, where he's finally talking to Harmony about what he wants, and he's just like, no, fuck this, just fuck her, I don't trust her, and she's just kind of like sitting at her car with her arms crossed of just like, well, whenever you get over yourself and come join my team. And they obviously do, because the story has to go forward. I hate her so much. And there's one person I know who loves her because she's a mean woman. And they just like love like women who stand up for themselves. I'm like, this is the exact, like, Helly is the like empowered, like kind of bitch that I love. Whereas Harmony is the bitch everyone in Hollywood writes. Like, you are a mean person who happens to be on the right side of history. You can be confident and daring and confrontational without being like just the most miserable, unlikable, cruel. Like, she's like rolling her eyes as she like, as Mark is like, why the fuck have you been doing this to me? And she's like laughs at him. It's just like, what is it that you want from him in this moment? It's like, this feels like an anime where it's like, oh, you can't be friends with me because I'm too dangerous, so I'm going to become a bad guy just so I don't have to tell you that. It's like, why don't you just say like, hey, just communicate? I don't know. It feels like it is like her character. Someone is writing for Harmony, and then the rest of the cast writes for the rest of the show. I don't get it. She just doesn't fit
Harmony, she is written as just like the only. I kind of had it articulated in my head, but now I'm getting my thoughts jumbled. Like, a movie I saw recently that I forgot to mention that we definitely could talk about at some point is Honora. Honora is amazing. God, that movie is so good, and it's so fun and entertaining. But
Because the
Honora,
Oscars told you to like it.
but
Fucking sheep.
I watched it before the Oscars told me it was good. But Honora, the main character, her name is Honora, obviously. She is the exact type of female lead that is so well written and so good, where you root for her because she's self-assured. She lives in a world that isn't ideal, but she still like gets work done. She gets shit done. She lives for herself. She's doing what she wants to do, but she's strong and can overcome things, not in an unrealistic way. But yeah, it's kind of hard to articulate off the top of my head, but you get what I'm saying. Is like she's a very believable, strong female lead character. I love the way she's written. Harmony Cobell is the opposite of that. Like you said, she's specifically written to be. What am I trying to say? It's like, it's not believable why she is this way. She's just a fucking asshole. And she happens to have, because they wrote her this way, like you said, she just happens to be on the right side, not because she made the good choices or because she's sympathetic. She's just like,
you know what, Kyle? I just thought of something. I need to interrupt you. Of like,
go.
why it bothers me.
I can't say it.
Is that she is only on the right side of history because she wants credit. It has nothing to do about her morals changing. It is nothing about seeing what the people are going through or why it's fucked up. It is because I deserve more. That is the only reason she's doing any of this. And for some reason, the story is portraying that as a reason I should root for her. You should have been listening and caring about, like, oh, now that it inconveniences your legacy, that's why you decide to, after they betray you. So, like, it's just kind of like a fair weather friend. Like, they're only here because it's convenient for them, not because they are better, but the show is acting as if she's changed. But all of her dialogue's identical, and the characters treat her as if she hasn't changed, but, like, the narrative is allowing her to be the, I don't know. That's what drives me nuts about it, is, like, nothing's changed for her other than, like, well, they won't let me be boss. And, like, this show feels like a class solidarity story about, like, especially this season of, like, people sticking up for each other, like the Severance people being, like, sticking up for each other in spite of the people above them telling them otherwise. So Cobell, to me, feels like that person who really enslaved them, and then she's not interested in doing this because she feels any guilt or any shame or any regret for anything she's done, just in that I was right the whole time and I should have been like, I'm the one who invented Severance. Like, she just wants to be Kier. That's why she's doing this. Yeah. And, like, if that was her, if her motivation was more clearly that, I'd like her more, because at least I'd understand, like, that feels like a ambitious, power-hungry person trying to use people to move up the chain. But right now, I don't know what... She's just a petty, like, incel on Reddit? Like, just taking down somebody because they wronged her? Like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah, her whole episode felt like a really big waste of time, especially because, number one, don't care about her. I don't like her. I don't want her to do anything good or successful. She's pissing me off. She replaced a much more believable, fun character. I'm even looking at the fucking cast list, and I cannot find this woman's name. The one that helps.
I think she's, like, relatively, like, I don't say anonymous, but Mark is, like, the only person who talks to her, and he, like, probably just didn't say her name that much.
Yeah, I guess.
But yeah, I wouldn't recognize if I saw it either. I know that it's funny how intensely the dislike is for her. It's because she's the only outlier in the show, in my opinion. Even things I don't love, I don't feel this intensely negative about. It is just this one character.
Yeah. Yeah, so, like, her whole episode felt like a waste of time. It was super annoying. I don't care about her or her backstory. There's a whole 5-minute scene of her crying on the bed because her mom died, but we never see her mom once. We don't get much information on her. I already hate Harmony, so why do I give a fuck if she's sad? Like, good, I'm glad you're sad.
They needed this episode way earlier. If they wanted us to care, they needed to put it in way earlier. Not this episode before the season 2 finale.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Um, Asal Regabi, a former Lumen surgeon who performs reintegrations. That's her name. Her real life name is Karen Aldridge, is the actress. So
Oh,
I
the
don't know that I
irony of
ever heard her name. Asal? Asal?
maybe it was probably said in a way like once, and he just doesn't say her name often. Like how many times is it written in the script? I bet you it's very.
Yeah, like where did she come from? She was in season 1? She
Yes,
how
she was.
what was she?
The same thing that Mark started to try to reintegrate, got freaked out and told her to fuck off, and then he reached out again to go all in on it, I think is what
Or he was trying to do the light in the eyeball message to his innie, but then she just like pops out of the ground like a fucking Doug Trio.
Oh yeah, that's true. She just kind of pops
Yeah,
back
she's like,
up,
I can help you.
like,
And he's like, oh my god, okay. Um,
I love the how the innies and outies, they've made them different people driven by
yeah,
similar motivations.
that's mostly what I wanted to talk about. That too is the concept of if you were a severed person, you know, this is a great discussion on nature versus nurture kind of thing. Like they are literally the same person, and all of their motivations are totally believable and understandable. Why they feel the way they do makes sense, but they're completely different people, but they're also the same person. Watching the scene later in season 2 where Mark has to record his response to himself as he walks in and out of this severed room.
Oh, that's so good.
It was
I love
so
that.
fun, and it was so cool, and it really felt like I was watching 2 different characters. You forget that it's the same person, but you root for both of them for the same reasons, and they both. It was just so interesting to think about. The whole severed concept is really, really wild, and it just really. Yeah, I don't know. It's a really, really interesting concept, really cool. I really wish I would stop using the word really, and
yeah, try very. One thing I also really loved is that they picked outies for all of them that are pretty unique and interesting, as different types of people, and I find that like Helly being the like main antagonist outside is
that was cool.
One, very good. Mark being an escapist type person, Dylan just being like kind of a struggling guy.
Yeah, like he's kind of a loser and not good at anything.
Yeah, and like a wife that's kind of. But and then
Bert, who's like a total loner, and it seems like he just kind of wants a connection or something.
Wait, don't you mean Irving? Isn't Bert Christopher Walken?
Yes. Yeah, Irving.
Look, even Brianna off screen knew. That's embarrassing, Kyle.
Yeah, my bad, dude.
Irving was, I think, Brianna, that was one of your top. Yeah, or she loved her.
He's the best.
I hope he comes back because I love John. Yeah, he's way good.
Or is it Turturro or Turturro?
I have always heard John Turturro.
Okay, Turturro. That makes sense with the double R's at the end. It's probably Turturro. But I will say, obviously, the part of what they're emphasizing. So number one, I do want to. This will probably. I want this to be a quick comment, but it'll probably turn into a whole other conversation. But I wish they did more with Helly and her outer self being an Egan. They kind of just let that fizzle. There was there's really cool episode in season 2 where they're on that outdoor retreat.
Holy shit, that was
such a cool episode. A little detail I wish they did was make the innies react to being outside more. I know at the end of season 1, they kind of, they do that, the overtime contingency protocol thing, and they all kind of escape and get into the real world. But if you think about it, the innies, they are literally born in the office. They do not ever get to leave. That is their entire life, is in that office. So I wanted them to react to the outdoors, be like, oh, like, like the air smells weird, or like, it's cold. What the hell? Like, I've never been they've never been in a space that isn't perfectly conditioned. You realize that? Like, they went from being innies at their job to then all being they were
came home.
all, even when they escaped and like, did the overtime contingency and swapped places basically with their Audis, they were still all indoors in conditioned places. Like, they had never felt cold outside air on their skin. They've never felt that. I wanted them to be like, what the hell's going, whoa, this is crazy,
I do think it was fitting that there was no sun either. Like the entire time was an overcast, which is fitting.
Wherever they
I feel
were,
like they would react. They would react to the sun, I think, more than anything else. But yeah, I do agree. There was it's kind of like I think for the convenience of a pacing for an episode, like it's like, oh, what do you cut to make it times like, oh, maybe them reacting to
but
it.
just like one line.
It's like I never thought cold could be this bad, or just something, just like I didn't know this what cold felt like.
We
I didn't realize cold hurt.
I wanted an acknowledgement of what they were experiencing, because to me, as putting myself in the innie shoes, thinking like I've spent my entire life in a falsely lit air conditioned office, and I'm suddenly outside in the trees on a cliff with snow under me with clouds, like. I mean, that would be like us going to an alien fucking planet and experiencing a new atmosphere. I mean, it's completely
That's
new.
True.
They needed something. On top of the fact that it was so bizarre. They literally came to, and even as the audience, you had to be like, is this a dream? Is this real? What the fuck's happening? Because they all like woke up in the middle of this wintry snowscape. Like, they didn't know how the fuck they got there. And rudely,
they put one person on the ice and the others up on the mountain. What the hell is that
they
about?
Put Irving down
Dickheads.
there. And they're weird, like, half clay versions of themselves that was slowly pointing and moving. Those things were really creepy. I was hoping we get more from that, but I guess it's a good thing they didn't. But for those who haven't seen the episode, they're whatever. It's not worth explaining, I guess. There's just
correct. That is the correct answer to your own
it's
question.
Bizarre. It kind of creepy. The show does that very often, where there's little bits of creepiness. So yeah, I wish there was more acknowledgement in that episode of what they were actually feeling and experiencing. I wish they did more with Helly being, a fucking Egan. That's huge. And that episode, part of why I mentioned that episode too, was that it turns out that Helena Egan had actually did a something blocker. What's the word they use?
Beta. I don't know.
No, it's not a beta blocker. It's basically where like you go. It's a thing that blocks the severed part of your brain. So Helly, or I should say Helena Egan, was actually trying to infiltrate the innies. So she was pretending to be her innie. She was pretending to be Helly. And you don't know this as an audience member, but Irving does. And that's part of the strife in that episode, is Irving keeps antagonizing Helena. Not antagonizing, interrogating her, asking her questions that she's not really answering because... Irving can tell that it's not Helly, it's Helena.
And like, even as an audience member, as I was watching it, this is the experience I had, and I realized that should have actually been in the flag that it was Helena and not Helly, is that why wouldn't Helly... Like, the show sets up that Helly is disgusted by the fact that she's an Egan. Like, she's the reason she exists and she hates it, right? So at first, I thought she wasn't sharing it because she had so much shame. But what I think it actually was is because, like, she doesn't know how to make up a story about like, she just, so I think it was an interesting, why, like, I could see why Mark would believe her and then Irving not believe her, because it's, her reasoning for not sharing could be multiple reasons of, like, maybe it was private and she just didn't want to share it, but, like, Irving just, like, no, that doesn't make sense. And I don't know, I think that's a sign, I think, of good writing, is that, like, you can interpret something in a different way than somebody else, because like maybe what I'm saying here you don't agree with, but I think that it works, at least. Of like why Mark, and also the idea of like when you have a crush on someone, you just overlook weirdness, and technically they were both virgins, right? Well,
yeah, their innies
Mark, and that's the other thing I didn't really appreciate, is like that's why they have nicknames, or they go first name last initial. Is so that when you talk about their innies versus outies, it's like, so Mark S is his innie, and then Mark, and then Helly and Helena, or Helena?
Yeah.
I hate that name in real life. Dylan and Dylan R, Irving and Irv.
Dylan G, but yeah.
Dylan G, that's it.
Dylan. Yeah,
That was
and
probably my favorite episode, by
yeah,
the way, was that.
yeah, the retreat. Something else I wanted them to touch on too was the fact that, so like I said, the Audi Helena Egan is infiltrating the innies to learn information. I don't even remember why now she's actually doing this, but she's basically just trying to infiltrate and learn something. She ends up seducing Mark S. And while she's talking to Mark S, or they're kind of like laying together in their tent, Mark asks her if she's okay, and she says, I was ashamed of who I was on the outside. That's why I lied about my experience. And Mark says, like, I don't care who your Audi is. I care about you, the innie, which of course he doesn't know. He's talking to Helena. But when it's revealed that she was a double agent, it made me go, like, it made me think that she might have actually been able to speak
100%.
Yeah, I think she was being genuine there. And she even, she seduced Mark, and it seemed like she wanted that connection, because even on the outside, her father is really mean to her and cold. She's just know nothing but coldness on the outside. So I was really hoping they would kind of merge that idea and make Helena realize, like, she needs more in her life than just being the daughter of an Egan. But they literally just cut ties. I don't think you actually see Helena for the rest of the season after that episode.
They make her go, basically she makes this big stink after that of like, I'm not going back down there. And her dad's like, I literally don't give a shit, you are. And that's more or less the end of Helena for this season. But what I liked at first is when she was going to do the infiltration, she finds some security footage of Helly and Mark kissing at the end of season 1. And like, what me and Brianna, when we were watching it, were trying to figure out is like, is that her being like, I can use this? Or is she looking at that and being like jealous and almost like envious?
See, that's
and
great.
Like,
I had the exact same thought. You think later, like, oh, she was studying that to learn Helly's kind of behaviors, how she acts around Mark. But then you also, if you pay attention to how she's watching it, it looks like she's like, oh my God, Helly loves somebody and is feeling love in return. Like, I don't know what that feels like as Helena. Like, what? I think it is, again, it's both. Yeah, I really liked that too, when she was kind of studying the security cam footage.
And it's I think that they're gonna do stuff with Helena, especially as the season 2 ends. But it's too bad we didn't get kind of like where are they going to be at the start of season 3? I kind of don't know where Helena is in the like pantheon of the company right now. Last time I checked, she was sent down there and she hasn't come back up. So
I guess we see her. No, she like cuts the egg and she's eating a hard-boiled egg, and then her father makes a weird comment like, "I wish you would eat them raw," and then the scene cuts like and we don't see her again. It's weird.
It's this constant idea that like it literally does not matter. She cannot.
She's never
make
good enough.
Anybody happy.
Yeah.
But this idea of this shitty version of herself makes this person so happy that they like. They're in love of just like, well, everything I know has not brought me happiness, but this person who knows nothing about the world is happy. And like, I think I could see maybe Helena being a big instrument in, because what I think is really good about the end of season 2 of why I'm more excited is that they are shaking up a lot of things, and people are in lockdown inside the severed floor. So like, and someone who's gone missing in the real world is out, and there's just like so many things that are deeply shaken up that I'm like, I'm curious as to where they're gonna go.
Yeah, so let's. I mean, we've been talking for about an hour now. I think we can move towards the end of season 2 now and talk about kind of the climax. Do you have anything else to say about the other stuff?
I loved them trying this idea of, instead of punishing them as a way to get them to do what they want, is to give them rewards, which feels like such a modern corporation. As a person who works for a company I won't name, just for the off chance of it, someone from that company listening, that would be the types of rewards they would incentivize negative personal, like, here's a way to work more, but a way to reward you for it. And it's just like this, we love you, so you should help us out. This idea that they're tantalizing Dylan with this reward that he can't tell his other coworkers about. So he's secretly working against them because he wants to meet this woman so badly. And then they show that Dylan G is a big fucking loser, but in a different way than Dylan G down there is. Like, Dylan G down there is a loser. He's kind of a dick. But he knows what he's doing and cares about and loves those people down there. Where up above, it's like, you couldn't even put, like, cookies in the oven.
Yeah.
And, like, and he can't get any job. Everything is just like, oh, no, I didn't do it. Sorry. And so, like, to have this woman who's like, she's just kind of floating is the energy I got. She's just kind of like, yeah,
she's
I'm
drifting.
here. It's my life.
His outie wife, we haven't talked about it. His outie wife starts visiting Dylan as an innie. So Dylan goes to work, gets severed, becomes his innie, and then Dylan, because of his good behavior, is being rewarded by getting allowed to see his outie wife. And his outie wife is basically re-falling in love with Dylan. And eventually, later in the season, outie Dylan finds out and feels like very violated, and he's angry, feels like he basically was cheated on, because you kind of are, like we've been saying, the severed people, they're different people. But Dylan's outie wife is like, he just reminds me of you when we first started dating. He's nice, he's motivated, he knows what he's doing, he's sweet, and he loves me. Yeah, he knows what he wants, he cares about me. Like, I think she even makes a comment very similarly to out here. I feel like we're just drifting,
100%. Yeah, and she even makes it clear that it's like, he reminds me of you. It's not like I like this guy. It's like, no, this is just like,
it's you.
I remember why I fell in love with you, Dylan, outside in the real world. And I think they handle that really tactfully in both how what's such an interesting thing. It's like, is that me and Brian had a conversation. It's like, that's cheating, right? Like, and that's where, and like, obviously it's very complicated, and like emotional cheating and physical cheating are different things. Yeah, but like they definitely. But I do think it was very interesting and awesome to see that. I think that was a really cool, another way of like showing. I like that we didn't even talk about the best character, which was Milchek, who's just like such a, and I think it's partially the actor. Like, that character is good, but it's only as good as it is because the actor's performance is just truly unbelievable.
Yeah, she's so good. Consume feculence.
What? Eat
shit. Yeah, it was. He is so great.
But I brought that up as like, I like that he was trying to break their spirit to stay instead of it being in punishment. It was like, why would you want to leave? We treat you so good here. Like, the break room before was about breaking their spirits, but now it's a break room. And I just think like those types of things are really clever. I loved Miss Huang.
Yeah, Miss Huang. Yeah.
Huang, yeah, as kind of like this.
He never explained why she's fucking like 12 years old. It's so weird.
Why are you young? And she's like, because of when I was born. This season is also funnier than I thought it would be, but her in particular, I also was talking to Brianna a lot. I was like, what is she here for? And I do realize that, like, I think it kind of represents this person who jumps into the company right out of college, ready to be kind of like, to live the lie they're peddled, and like it doesn't go the way she wants, and she doesn't know what to do with herself anymore. Like, she sees the employees as losers in the beginning because that's what she was brainwashed to believe, and that her boss would do the right thing, but he's, after years of like trying to like get to this position, it's not fulfilling. And this shows so much nuance that like I feel like doing a review of the podcast is like not doing it justice, because everybody deserves their spotlight because they're so interesting, have so many unique things. But I want to talk about like her in particular because I find her the most interesting, because the show doesn't, if she wasn't there, you could replace her with an adult, like, she doesn't do anything other than be a receptionist, more or less. That was another eyes and ears for the company to observe these people. But like she even gets disillusioned by Milchek at the end because Milchek is getting disillusioned, and like she just seems so aimless by the time of the end of the season. But like it felt like intentional. I don't know.
But
I found her interesting. I don't know.
The last thing she said was very sweet. I think she was talking to Dylan because Dylan, his innie, is trying to quit, and she says something. She basically just apologizes. She's like, I'm sorry. I couldn't. She says like, I'm sorry I didn't facilitate better, I think is what she says. And Dylan turns and says, it's not your fault, and leaves. And she looks very like touched and genuine.
That's a good point. And like they do establish early in the show too that she hates them. Like she like thinks that they are less than her.
Yeah,
she says something along those lines.
Yeah.
So the fact that she's apologizing and feels touched
she gets mad. She gets mad at Milchek. She says, "Why are you treating them like they're people?" She says something like that.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah,
that was the very and like to me, what that moment was her realizing they aren't. Yeah, they are people.
Yes.
And then the fact that she apologizes back feels like that's not how that company behaves. They do not. They are very cruel to the people that work for them. It's like you do what we say, and if you don't give us the results, then you are worthless to us.
Yeah, I mean, it's cruelty with a smile. That's all. That's Lumen. That's all they are. Cruelty with a smile.
Oh, and they also, that's the other big thing, is they imply that Lumen does way more than just what we think they're doing.
But we don't see it.
Because that old town, the old town had a Lumen factory.
Yeah. But it's all...
What are they making in the...
Yeah, exactly. The Lumen chips, maybe, that they were putting in people's brains, who knows? But yeah, the whole town is destroyed, and I imagine that might be a side effect of Lumen leaving. You know, you...
Yes, I have to imagine that's what it was. They built up this economy, and once it was no longer useful for them, they leave, and they destroy it, and they don't care about the fallout, and that's... Oh, is that another metaphor? I don't know. So that's the speed run of all the characters. Irving, I'm bummed that they didn't have more to do with him this season. I do like that they gave him an emotional arc, but it didn't move the plot. But it does, what I do think it's good is it sets up that the people in the department that Bert was in was doing some dark shit, smuggling people that need to get disappeared.
I thought that was Bert talking about his outie self, and that's why he severed, because on the outside,
I think it's
an
both.
Enforcer that made people disappear, and on the inside, he's just like catalogs paintings and shit.
Because I think you get to that room from, and like that was my understanding, was the directions more or less got them near the department where those paintings were kept, and from there is how you get to that access to that elevator that led to the like Cold Harbor area. That's why I thought the innie and the outie were kind of not intentionally working together, but that's why they had the outie Bert doing that innie work.
One thing I will say is outie Irving and innie Irving are almost identical. I thought that was a little... They didn't do enough with outie Irving to differentiate him. I forgot he was even an outie, the way he was talking with Bert.
The big difference is I think it's also showing this idea that they are at their core still one being. But I do think that the other ones explore the dichotomy to show where they are similar better. It does truly feel like they're both sad, lonely people looking for an old man to love them.
Yeah. So,
and like maybe that's the idea of like the fact that Irving and Bert reconnected with no like I don't know, and like that's why
soulmates.
Bert knew where Irving was, because of, I don't know. There's some stuff that's all up for interpretation. It's all.
Yeah,
it's no Minecraft movie, is all I'm saying.
Right. True. Yeah, I want to talk about two more things before we wrap this up, because I do have a deadline today.
Prior engagement.
Yes. One I want to talk about, because this is the part of the show that made me feel kind of dumb, is Gemma and all the different rooms that she goes in. I don't quite understand any of that.
I have a theory.
And two, I want to talk about the ending specifically, like the actual last few minutes of the last episode. So those are the two things I think we should talk about before we wrap up.
So this is what me and Brianna understood. I'm giving her a lot of credit because I worked out a lot of this with her. Is that the idea is each room represents an emotion, animosity, fear, anger. Like they say this stuff directly about those rooms are there to highlight one emotion very intensely, And the idea then is you would take anybody and completely remove their any. That they would just replace, they're able to like more or less make a severed worker, like more or less cloning people, like making a human exactly the an any. It's not just like the Audi's any, it is now Lumen's any. Like they get to override whatever personality they had prior with this blank slate, so they're just perfect workers. That is what I am interpreting all of that to be. And like why when Gemma enters that one room, she's so traumatized about the baby that the fact that she feels nothing and starting to building shows like we have now removed all emotion from this person. I think
there's nothing left of there's nothing left of their Audi. It's only any.
So like in theory then if that's the case, they won't have this, like maybe they can keep them there forever and or just make them do make slaves in a certain way, that is kind of what I think the long-term goal of this project is. Now, the big question that you and I both share is like, well, what about Mark and Gemma in particular is the reason they built MDE is apparently always been for Mark?
MDR,
but Petey was running it before Mark showed up?
And also, if the reason that Mark came to Lumen was because Gemma died, quote unquote, in a car accident, which actually, is implied that she was then kidnapped and they faked her death. So they knew killing or faking Gemma's death and kidnapping her would then cause Mark to join Lumen. Like, what if Mark just killed himself? Then what does Lumen do? If you think about bigger picture, like how Mark ended up there because of Gemma's kidnapping, quite coincidental. Why?
So what I could, if the show doesn't want to say it, my assumption is that more or less the project has always been the same, but Mark and Gemma are just the next two. And maybe it was Petey and his wife, or they're in theory, the show could hand wave and be like, oh, we've been trying this on multiple people, and it's just been the most successful on Gemma and Mark in particular because of how, one, Mark wants to be at work all the time. I don't know. That's something that I think the show could hand wave away or directly answer.
Yeah, you're right. They could go like, you know how many men and women we've killed, and then their spouses just go kill themselves, or they move across the country, and we don't get anything out of it, or
so like the weird accidents happen all the time, and all that. Lumen runs the fertility clinic. That's how they found Mark and Gemma. They likely fit the criteria. Wow. Brianna with notes from downtown. So it is likely then Mark and Gemma are going for parents that or people that have insane traumas.
Yes, trauma and tragedy. Yeah, okay.
It says theories that Lumen made them have failed pregnancies. All right, well, we'll see.
So
I do think
we have no thoughts of our own on this.
Fit the theory.
We had to Google the answers to our questions here. We couldn't figure it out. See, this is what I'm saying. I feel stupid. In that show.
But I also think a lot of this there is a lot of the show has a lot of moving parts, and there's just a lot of detail that if you forget one detail, all of a sudden the isolated plot, the show treats you like you are smart enough, which is what people like us always complain about, being treated stupid. So this is kind of the other side of the coin, is I think we can forget the subtleties that connect some tissues, or they don't highlight a thing that is more as important as it might just be like a line said by a character in a non-important scene. But anywho, I think that makes some sense. And this idea is not necessarily that Mark is unique, but he's unique in that he is a person of loss with intense loss. And Gemma is the fertility, the loss of the baby is what they're after and stuff. That makes perfect.
So, okay, so why then why is Gemma gonna die once this project is complete? Why would they kill Gemma?
Because she's dead in real life. What are they gonna do? In theory, I guess you could leave her in Lumen, but Maybe all this writing and rewriting is like kind of break someone's brain. Like she's not going to be that useful, but she's the lab rat that proves the theory. These are just my ideas. I don't have any actual like things to back up what I believe here.
Okay. And then the last thing I wanted to comment on was the kind of the climactic sequence at the end of the last episode. The violence was crazy, very surprising.
Yeah, that was so unexpected, and it made it way more intense because like I didn't know what was going to happen, and I do like that they brought back the this weird goat lady that you're like, why the fuck is this here? It's like, all right, at least it was a nice show of like, once again, I'm class solidarity of like, instead of treating us as enemies, which that's, you know, season 1 they show that like every department is told lies about other departments, that they're evil and they'll destroy you. You gotta stay away. To show like, hey, no, we should be talking. We should be working together here. They're treating us badly. Let's stick up together. And that's exactly what ends up happening. Very literal violence against upper management.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean obviously the one scene where Mark is holding this kind of pistol thing to the neck of the big bruiser guy, and as he becomes his innie, he accidentally pulls the trigger. I mean,
oh yeah,
dude, imagine waking up to that oh my god, so cool and utterly insane and shocking, and so much blood. And I love that they used that blood to like allow him to get into the room with the pinprick thing, and he uses it. Yeah, a lot of really, really cool stuff happens in that whole sequence.
And what I do think it's brave of this show is like, you can't go back to the status quo after this without a big cleanup and changes to maybe getting some insights to like, has this happened before? Like stuff like that. Like it's hard to imagine how cleanly they'll be able to reset this. Because that dude wasn't necessarily a board member, but he was close to the board.
No, he was a board member, wasn't he?
In some ways, I got the vibe that the board was a literal being. Like it exists inside that microphone in some ways. Like,
okay, maybe. Let's see.
I don't know why I think I may have misinterpreted something. I just for some reason don't expect them to ever show us anyone on the board.
Yeah, maybe I misunderstood who the board was. Yeah, that's probably the best case for them.
Are you gonna do some research?
One thing I didn't quite like or understand is the end, where Mark, gets Gemma out and is going to go out after her, and then decides to stay in with Helly. And
yeah.
What I don't get is like, what the fuck is his plan? He's gonna have to leave Lumen eventually, and then as soon as he leaves, Outie Mark is gonna be like, "Oh my god!" Like that's I don't know. I don't like the ending. I just didn't like it because they're clearly not on lockdown. They literally opened a door and could leave. So at some point, Mark is going to have to leave.
You are thinking with your brain and not your heart, because that is what Mark S is saying, that like, this woman, I freed her. She means nothing to me, but I love Helly. I'm not leaving her behind. I want to be with her. Because they show like Mark S and Mark did not like see eye to eye by the end, and like he basically fulfilled the agreement like 90% of the way. So what to me that stated was that like at the end he's like, I saved her, but like I'm not leaving Helly behind, and I want to be with her. I don't know
if I'm only with her for even if I'm only with her for 8 more hours, I guess. Like
it's not. I agree that like but remember. To Mark S, if he left that door, he's dead. He's never coming back. That's the other thing I think that may be easy to forget, is that like, why would Mark come back to Lumen ever, assuming there wasn't a lockdown? Like, right? Regardless, Mark is not coming back. He's only there because Gemma was gone. Gemma's back. Why would he work at Lumen?
So Mark dies if he leaves.
Yeah, and he doesn't want to lose this connection he has with Helly Art. Like that is why he doesn't want to die, and that. So that's why I thought it was really good, because it's this that emotional pull, and it's so hard to convince him, like, hey, you should kill yourself for me. to make my life better.
Right.
And like, and I agree that it's like, this is a very short-sighted, like, what the fuck are you guys going to do? But I think that isn't necessary. Like, when the alarms are blaring, you aren't thinking about like, well, eventually the alarms will go away. It's like, well, we got to get through the alarm. Where are we going to hide? And like, they'll figure it out is what I assume.
And also, you know, Gemma is out, but that doesn't necessarily mean she will get out. They could security could capture her outside and bring her back in, or, you know, they could.
I assume Gemma's getting out 100%.
Mark has now murdered somebody, so, you know, he's going to be on the hook for murder, basically, his innie. But Lumen, at the same time as how powerful they feel, they also feel very bare bones, you know? Like, security is pretty lax. It seems like they have one person. These people can just walk around the floor however they want. There's not guards or anything. Like, once you go out that door or up the elevator, you can just walk out. You know, they got to check in when they get into the building, but there's not... I think there is so much compartmentalization and separation between everything, even at Lumen, that it seems like, yeah, Gemma could come running upstairs and out of the building in a total panic, and people would look and be like, "What the fuck is that about?" Oh well, keep going.
Yeah, and because like the other, that's what I was gonna say is like they break everybody. So one is that when no matter what happens on the inside, as soon as you leave, you're a normal person again, and like, what are they gonna have an issue with? Like, as far as this Audi's concerned, they walk to the door then back. So like, there's almost no reason for security to exist. The innies are broken in the way that they don't rebel, and the Audis can't know what the innies know, so there's no reason for them to feel compelled to do this violence that they're aware of, right? Obviously.
Yeah, it's actually, it's a pretty good system, isn't it? It's like, you almost don't need security because of how isolated and separate the two things are. They just don't know about the other one. So yeah, that's pretty clever. So that, but then that also makes a situation like this, like, oh my God.
And it's kind of like, and it can be almost, the irony is like that it could be shown to Audis as like a reason of how good this environment is. Like, we don't even need security. We don't need to have locks on doors. It's so safe here. So like, ironically, that might be why none of the doors are getting locked, is like, they might have alarms going off for like fire alarms and stuff, but when do they lock you in a building if there's an actual emergency? Is like, they can't be responsible for any, if an innie gets injured at work, it's a big deal. You know what I mean? Let alone fucking fire breaks out or a tornado, you know? So I think that in a weird way, in universe, it kind of explains why Gemma was able to get out, is like, there's this level of arrogance of like, who, if you get out of the cold harbor room, like, you're supposed to not be there then. How could Gemma ever get out? Because it's a severed fucking elevator. As soon as she gets in there, she doesn't remember. She's Miss Casey again.
Yeah.
Couldn't remember why. So it's like this, they have this foolproof method that's better than a gun. It's mind control. But what if you can control the mind control? That's why I like the ending more than you did. That's because I interpret it as much more of a, as someone who has feelings and loves people, which is something I'm sure you'll learn about eventually.
I don't quite have that yet.
Is this like short-sighted plan makes sense to me, and a lot of like Hollywood writing is.
Yeah, I get it. It's
no, you don't. Okay, then you wouldn't have said it.
Impulsive and emotional. I understand why Mark did it, but yeah, as I don't know, it's just immediately, of course, my thought is like, why? Wait, but why? What's he gonna do?
You are talking not necessarily of like, I don't understand your action, but like more of a, you did not think this through. Why would you do this to yourself?
Yeah.
I see. You know what, Kyle? That's why communication's hard.
Oh, okay.
I'm learning to read.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
Good for you.
So I really like the ending. I also even love this idea that they have a department of just people who just play loud music in random departments, which goes against the spirit of like, oh, all the departments are evil, but maybe it's not really the point.
Yeah, forget
but I
do forget about that.
I do think that Helly's like kind of speech to rally these people for support, like this show very much feels like workers should look out for each other. Don't worry, like, they can't do anything to you if you stand together. And that's what I think the show was showing, that like they were successful when they stood together against Milchik. Because like, let me tell you, that dude would break a neck. I was very scared of that man trying to break out of that back.
Milchik is scary. he was very back and forth. I thought maybe he would concede in the bathroom the way he was looking at himself in the mirror. You were thinking like, is he realizing how evil Lumen is and like the lengths these people are going to try to escape and correct things? Is he realizing that he's been duped because he's been mistreated by management and he's getting disillusioned? And then suddenly he kind of turns on fight mode and tries to get out again, and it is. So
and in really some ways, it could just be anger. Like he may not want to get out. Maybe he'd then be totally chill. But there's just like this snap that happens because something I wanted to ask you about is the paintings he gets from management eventually.
Yeah.
And he feels just like what is your interpretation of how he feels or why he feels the way he feels weird about the gifts he gets? And I'm just curious what.
Well, the gifts are paintings of significant Lumen figures over the years, but they're done as Milchick.
Okay.
So it's basically, there's like a painting of Keir Egan, but he's a black guy with Milchick's face. And so it's basically they've like blackfaced a bunch of these paintings to celebrate Milchick as like, hey, here's you as versions of significant Lumen people over the years.
Okay, I did not catch that detail that it was just like,
and that's why he specifically
blackface.
That's why he talks to that one assistant to the board girl, because I think she's like mixed race. I think she's half black. And so that's why he seeks her out specifically, because he's like, I know you received those gifts too. How did you feel about it? She's like, I'm not talking to you about this. Goodbye. Her robotic Lumen bullshit. But you can even see in her smile and her eyes, I think she knows, but she just like can't talk about it. The brainwashing is too strong.
Okay, that does make sense. Okay, now that I know that, I think I understand.
Yeah, it was just a weird like disconnect that they clearly don't know how to handle interrace things. They don't know what to do to celebrate him. And they spent all the time
to do that, but they won't update the goddamn login to not say
Miss Cobell every time instead of Miss Milchick. Yeah, exactly. So it's just clear they don't know how to celebrate their employees. They're completely disconnected. They don't know what to do.
They genuinely don't care. No matter how high you up, they never start caring. Like you were either born into it or that's it. You can never climb high enough for them to care about you the way you want to be cared about. That's kind of okay. I like that. All right.
Yeah, so that's what it was.
And like, so maybe a lot of him trying to bust out is just he's just so fucking angry.
Yeah,
and it's just like everyone's against him. Like maybe he wants to kill everybody, not just the Lumen. And not just...
at this point, he's doing stuff to try to make his employees happy, and they hate him. And then he's trying to, and because of that, then his upper management hates him. So yeah, that's a good point. Literally everybody hates him. Nobody likes Milchick.
And
Miss even though he's trying.
Miss Wong has made it very clear that she doesn't like him either because he's not doing everything by the book. Yeah, so it's everybody.
Yeah, he certainly feels like he can't win. He's
sacrificed his life for this company, like like doing everything they ask, and it's just not good. Poor Milchick. I'm just kidding. He did this to himself.
So Helly came out of that room obviously to meet Mark and call him back into Lumen as he's about to potentially leave with Gemma. So. Because that one scene ends where he kind of breaks out of the bathroom. They basically lock him in the bathroom, and he breaks out of the bathroom, and there's 50 people standing there waiting to fight Milchick because Helly and Dylan have rallied the troops of a different department to come help them because they're like, I'm sure you guys have had your friends disappear. Like, we can't let these people, ruin our lives and help. Basically, we've trapped Milchick in here. Help us. But then Helly ends up leaving at some point, obviously, to come meet Mark. So basically, I'm just dissecting a very minor point of the scenes. So Milchick must have either surrendered or they grabbed him and captured him, and Helly felt safe enough to leave that room because she was at the front lines ready to fight Milchick. And then a scene later, she's like, hey, Mark, come back. So is that telling of what happened with Milchick? I guess maybe they just kind of grabbed him and held him.
I don't know.
I feel like Dad wanting to know details that aren't really pertinent, but it just made me think of that.
And it feels like something that's like intentionally you don't know, and like that is a good thread to dangle. I was like, well, what's up with Milchick in that room? Like, I agree. I feel like they omitted that, though it does feel like an intentional omission. Like it's a very high tension thing of like, what are they going to do with Milchek? If you knew what they're holding him down, like, I don't know, there's that sense of like, well, that's not really worried about it. They have him detained. Well, I don't know what they have with him right now.
Yeah. For context, our dad is very particular. He loves details. And a primary example I can think of that kind of sums it up perfectly is he gets frustrated at the movie The Road, based on the book, of course, because he doesn't know. Yeah, because he doesn't know why the apocalypse started. Right, The Road is about this father and son making their way through an apocalypse, and it starts like 10 years into the apocalypse. They're just kind of trying to survive, sort of like The Last of Us or something, right? And Dad always gets bothered. He's like, but what happened? What started that? Why is there an apocalypse? And it's like completely irrelevant. That's not the point of this fucking story.
It's so funny.
It bothers him. So like that's what I meant.
You could just make something up, and he'd be like, "Okay, now I'll engage with a piece of fiction." It's like, maybe you should just start lying to him about details. That's like, there was a bomb that dropped and it poisoned the water supply. So that's it. Like, I it's very funny to me because like, I do see that's my problem with like Cinema Sins type content of like nitpicking details. That are like, if you had the answer to this detail, what would that do to the story? And if your answer is just like, well, I'd know more, or like if it doesn't help character development, like, it doesn't matter really. Like, you're right. It could have been an oversight that they didn't mention this or that, or like he originally said he liked red Skittles, but now he likes blue ones. What happened? It's like, well, fucking, I don't know. Like, it's some of that stuff that's just like, but. That is something I find that like a lot of people seem to like criticize movies for not maintaining a thorough thread about like minor details that actually don't matter. And like that prevents it from maybe being like a masterpiece, but it certainly doesn't. That information doesn't help you answer your questions as to why you like or dislike this story. If you knew that an atomic bomb dropped in Japan, or in the United States or wherever, what does that change for The Road at all?
Yeah.
It literally changes nothing. Because it's not about the apocalypse, it's about living in a wasteland. And how do you get to a wasteland is there was an apocalypse. Like the Mad Max movies don't even explain why there's an apocalypse, just there was one, or bombs were dropped. Why were the bombs dropped?
Maybe Dad has gotten over it in years because he hasn't complained about that kind of stuff, and I know he likes Mad Max and stuff like that. But I just remember when The Road came out back in 2008, 2009.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he made a comment. He's like, I don't know. Like, why did the apocalypse happen? Oh my God, Dad. So fucking irrelevant.
Like that. That's so funny.
Anyways,
how did that even?
Severance. Season 1 was a lot better for me. It just there was more mystery in a fun way, and in this one, as the mystery kind of started getting revealed, I was losing interest. I basically watched this season sort of because I appreciated that it was well made, but I honestly was not that invested. I probably could have stopped halfway through and been like, eh. So I just watched it because it was good, but it did not hook me the way I was absolutely hooked on season 1. I wanted to binge everything, and this one,
It's something that I watch, and I think is gorgeously shot and framed, and like the technical aspects of this show are heads and shoulders above almost any other show I've seen in ages. And we didn't really talk about it, but like that's part of what makes this show so good. I don't know if you know this, there is a 90s magazine, a photographer's like book that he put out of just like taking photos of an office space in, I think it was in like Sweden or something. And it's just this collection of just like mundane photos of an office space while people are working. And that book was the inspiration for the visual language of this show.
Nice.
And I just think that the design of Lumen, the tight corridors, the lighting, like I love that the lights are like in those really secretive areas that are like popping up only where people are. Everything else is just shrouded in darkness except the exact area they're in. So it's always a mystery where they are, or where they're going, or where they came from. There's a lot of metaphorical, like, the way the shots are framed about, like, when characters are boxing each other out versus, like, they're boxed in together. It's just very intentional in a way that I think always makes a show better.
Yes, well said.
I think
technically the show is brilliantly done.
It's
it's
kind of in a league of its own.
Visually interesting, despite it taking place almost entirely inside white rooms and white hallways. It's
white outsides.
done.
Like even Mark's house is a fucking like townhome with no decorations.
There's always snow. It's always snowing.
Yep. Also, the fact that Irving uses a phone booth at some point.
Yeah.
Like it's just this. The cars all look like they're from like '98. No new cars look around. The computers are from like the late 70s. Like I love it. It follows. One of my favorite parts of that movie is like, I don't know when this is.
Right. Yeah.
And that kind of makes it timeless in a way. And I loved the enigmatic nature of the first season. And in the second season, as they unveiled it, I was interested. It's like one of those things that sometimes when shows unveil their mystery, I think I get like, oh, I don't like where this is going. This show, I didn't dislike where it was going. It just didn't move enough for me to feel like I know if I'm all the way in on their like story yet.
That's how I felt. It was just complete indifference. I wasn't more interested by the mystery or less interested. I just felt nothing as they revealed more. It's like, okay.
I will say the Cold Harbor rooms to me were the individual piece that was like the most exciting because I didn't know what was happening. But now that I've seen it to its full completion, I'm like, I don't know anything else in that season that really was. And it was like more of like, oh, I love to see how Milchek is running the floor, but that's not a story part. That's just, this show felt much more about its characters this season. And I felt that they already did the heavy lifting in season 1. So it wasn't that much. It was just more like interesting angles to take on it. I think like individual episodes, I would watch them and think they were really good. And I think maybe that helped me was watching. I paced myself much more than you, because you marathoned it. You watched a bunch chunks at a time.
No, I watched basically one episode a day because Lauren was really disinterested in this season compared to season 1, and the episodes were long. They're an hour long, so at night I didn't really feel like spending 4 hours. So.
Never mind then. All right, yeah.
No, I watched about one a day. Them. Yeah.
Okay. So, but for me, I think I was a bit higher on I'm more interested than you are, but I have a very similar, like, me and Brianna were talking about it. So Yellow Jackets season 3?
3.
Right?
Yeah, season 3.
Jackets. And Severance started like within a month of each other. And Brianna's in a group chat with her girlfriends for kind of like both of these shows, and they're popping off about Severance. And me and Brianna are like, we appreciate its quality and we're interested to see where it goes, and I like all the characters. It's just like the mystery in of itself, its driving force, isn't strong enough to make me feel sucked in the way that a lot of other people are. Like the show is, to me, is much more of a cerebral, like cool thought experiments about the innies and like worker standing up for each other and like the different masks you put on in the office versus at home, that type of stuff. But that doesn't make it a more compelling watch. Or like, what are they going to do in season 3? Is like, no, they already said interesting things. If they never put out another episode, I wouldn't be sad. I would be like, it's too bad. I bet you they could do something more interesting, but I wouldn't feel like, oh my God, they just ended it there? It's like, I don't know. I would be fine with it. I know a lot of people would be really mad, but like for me, I don't know.
Yeah.
I sound like I'm much more down on it than I am, as much as I think we disliking it even a little bit is against the grain. So I kind of feel like explaining my reasoning more for that reason, because everyone knows why the show's good, but not many people talking about the stuff that they don't like. In my experience, I keep saying it's like it lives up to the hype. Like it doesn't for me. At least season 2 didn't. Season 1 definitely.
Yeah, season 1 was great. Well, that's why I said season 1 was a 9, season 2 was a 7. You gave both a 9. One was just a higher 9.
No, one's a 9 and one's an 8. Let's be clear.
I think we
one's
can go
like
back
a 9.5 and the other's an 8.
You can go back. I think you said it. This was like, I'm pretty sure you said it's like maybe you said it was an 8, maybe a 9. Either way.
Yeah. See, I wasn't sure, and now
Severance is now renewed for a 3rd season.
And
so
if they
we know
put it
it's
out
coming.
In a timely,
it's not
if they put it out in a timely fashion, I think
not.
they have a chance to really kind of make another not, because that's the other thing that I think why I like the show is like it still has all the ingredients to me that they could build something that would be a 9 or a 10 still. It doesn't feel like they're too far gone to
It's not too far gone,
improve.
but the reveals just weren't quite epic or interesting enough for me to be invested anymore.
I'll let you know how season 3 is in 2028.
Right. I mean, I'm sure I'll watch it because I do want to know how the season 2,
At least that first episode.
yeah, I want to know what the outcome is of the season 2 finale, because like I said, it feels short-sighted, and I'm not sure what any Mark's plan is, because it doesn't really make sense. He's going on, of course, his feelings, but not anyways. Yeah,
I think that's Severance. I don't know that I have much else to say.
we didn't touch too much on, like, maybe the philosophical part of it. We mentioned that it was interesting to think about the separation, the severance of the, what an innie versus outie is, what you personally would be like as an innie or outie. Obviously, it's impossible to know. But yeah, as a show, it's absolutely worth watching. Very, very, very well done.
It is such a unique idea done so well that it feels like even if you don't think you maybe you aren't sure you'll like it, like you should still watch season 1. And it answered, like, to me, season 1 experience is so good that, like, anyone who's, like, vaguely interested, it's a unique idea that actually kind of engages with the interesting parts of their setup. Sometimes shows will set up a really interesting premise but don't engage with it a lot. This one is all about how fucked up it is to enslave somebody as a work person. How will that warp their relationships with people and the world? How susceptible they are to, like, propaganda, and, like, how that, like, even if you are the same person on the outside, you completely different type of, like, I don't know. That's what I really like, is it does seem to, I would ponder and be like, well, what about this? And they'll touch on it. So, that's something I think is really good. And why the show, I think, is liked so much is that it's actually engaging with its own subject matter more deeply than just like, oh, wouldn't that be a cool setup?
Right, okay.
Kyle agrees.
I thought you had more to say with the way you cut your sentence short. I was like, oh, he's done. Okay. Isn't that a cool setup?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I don't have much else to say about it. Season 1 is great. Season 2 is good. Technically phenomenal all around. Watch it. It's cool. It's worth watching. We spoiled more about season 2, honestly. Season 1 you could probably watch with a pretty fresh view, since we didn't talk about it too much.
I think it's harder to spoil season 1 because it's almost like, it's not hard to spoil season 1, but I find that season 1 is just like, it feels like it was just laid out very meticulously and just unveils in a,
oh, you know what?
In a way that,
oh, go ahead.
No, I don't really know where I was going.
Yeah, we need to wrap this up because I am running short on time. The last thing I will say is that I think part of what made me almost frustrated with Severance Season 2 was that we're watching The White Lotus right now as well, Season 3. It's still actively releasing, and we've been keeping up and watching it once per week. But this season of The White Lotus feels similar to... No, it doesn't feel similar. Basically, what I'm trying to say is Season 3 of The White Lotus has been agonizingly slow. We will finish an episode and me and Lauren will look at each other and be like, what actually happened? This show, the season 3 feels like they are dragging it the fuck out. And we noticed season 1 was 6 episodes, season 2 was 7 episodes, and I believe season 3, this one is going to be 10 episodes, maybe 8. But they just released episode 7, and like, nothing fucking happens. Season 1 and 2 are really, really good. They're crazy entertaining, fun, well-written, well-acted, compelling. This season, kind of don't like any of the characters. None of the characters are doing anything. It's all just kind of talking drama. A couple things happen, but overall, it's just like, it's really slow and kind of boring. And then, so we're watching this at kind of at the same time as watching Severance, and like I said, the big reveals in Severance weren't hooking me like I think the show wanted me to, and so I've just been watching these two shows that were amazing and are now worse, and I think they're both compounding and making me think less of both of them at the same time. Like,
Dang. I couldn't even get through one episode of White Lotus season 1. So
really, how come? Uncomfortable?
There was something. It's not necessarily the quality of the show as much as I think where I was or what I thought. It was just like a lot of characters, very intense right away, and I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to do the homework to like onboard all this noise. So I just didn't finish the episode, and like I didn't know what about it that everybody loved by the time I got there. So I was like, I don't know. Maybe I'll just give this a pause.
Yeah, it's intense and uncomfortable. A lot of it is very intense, uncomfortable situations and moments and conversations. So it's a heavier show, and season 3 has been sucking fucking ass and nothing's happening. It's really lame. And then Severance was kind of a step down from season 1 for me as well.
I'd say certainly to a lesser degree than White Lotus.
Much lesser degree. Yes.
Well, we'll see how it turns out in the future, but
yeah.
Well, that was Severance.
Yep.
You should sever your
Don't say it.
inability to watch it. Okay.
Just go watch the show.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening to another episode of the Apocalypse Podcast.
Thanks, y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.